Welcome to the third webinar in our Sport Hamilton series entitled Fundraising Opportunities for Sport Groups in Hamilton. My name is Helen Downey. Hold on, I better got this. My name is Helen Downey and I'm the president of Sport Hamilton, and I will be your host this evening. Firstly, I would like to acknowledge the land the City of Hamilton is situated upon, the traditional territories of the Erie, Neutral, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and Mississaugas. This land is covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, which was an agreement between the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabeg to share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. We further acknowledge that this land is covered by the Between the Lakes Purchase 1792 between the Crown and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nations. Today, the City of Hamilton is home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we recognize that we must do more to learn about the rich history of this land so that we can better understand our roles as residents, neighbors, partners, and caretakers. To everyone, please be aware that we are recording tonight's webinar so that if you want to share it with any of your club members, you're most welcome to do that. It will be emailed to everyone who is registered and later posted on the Sport Hamilton YouTube channel. After each presentation this evening, you will have the opportunity to ask our speakers any questions you might have. You can post them in the chat box as well. They'll be able to see it. And if they can answer it directly, they will at the time, or you can even ask after if we have time to, you can put your hand up and we can unmute you. So, in the sake of time, I'm going to get to our first speakers. We have Mr. James Demjan. He's the Director of Food and Beverage Operations at Tim Hortons Field. And Ms. Tricia Young, she's the Human Resources Staffing Manager of Food and Beverage at Tim Hortons Field. They will outline the fundraising program they have in place for not-for-profit sport groups and organizations. And Sport Hamilton has been a part of that over the last few months. So if you have any questions of me, I can certainly provide some. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome both James and Tricia. You'll see their pictures and their names up there. So I'm going to mute myself and take off my video and leave it up to you, James and Trish. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the introduction and for inviting us to this tonight. I'm going to try to share my screen and see if that works properly. So hopefully you can see the graphic that's up here, and this will be something that I can we can also send out directly. So Helen asked me to talk a little bit about one of the programs that we have at the football stadium, and it basically, what it is a way for us to get community groups involved at the football stadium, while at the same time helping non-for-profits raise some extra fundraising money for your groups. It helps us out. We find that having non-for-profits help work in our concession stands and help us put on our game day operations. There's a bit more of a community behind it, a bit more ownership. We usually find that we get people that are more engaged in our particular work, while at the same time being able to generate some income for each of the groups. We've done a couple of larger scale events in the last couple of months in which Hamilton Sport has participated. I'm hoping that they've had a great experience and also have raised a few extra dollars for the groups. So basically, I'll go through the main points of it to kind of discuss how it works. In a normal scenario, we're looking for a group to take over a stand, or be part of a group, such as Hamilton Sport, where maybe you work in conjunction with them. And how we do it is on a regular game day, the regular hours of operation and such as you're at a football stadium for about 6 hours. And over that 6 hours, there's about 3.5 hours of direct dealing with guests through that time. And how we do it is when a group comes in, and we have many different scenarios with many different numbers, but we'll use 10 as the base for the examples. If you have 10 people come in, we would pay $100 per person to come in, which is $1,000. Or we have an incentive plan that would allow for a bump up in ways of earning extra dollars. So over the course of the football season, we have 10 home games. So that's a potential of $10,000 extra dollars for your group. We also have at each of the cash registers, because there is alcohol sales and and food sales, we find being as part of we're non-cash, so we're cashless. The tips have grown exponentially this year due to that, and that we find that basically most cashiers are making anywhere between $65 and then probably $100 this year. And some of the groups have donated back all the proceeds of the tips back into the organization, or it's used as an incentive for the people who come out to work that covers their expenses for parking and just a little extra for being there. But what it's done is it shows that, for every group of 10 people, you can raise $10,000 over the course of the season. If you have larger groups, that can go up exponentially. So we've had the pleasure of having Hamilton Sport have, I think, 24 people at each of the last 2 large events, which basically allowed them to collect a little over probably $5,000 that went towards their organization. It's fairly simple. In a normal season, we would have the volunteers come in. We would train you over an hour period of time at the football stadium on a non-event day, show you how to get in, how to get out of the stadium, what's kind of entailed in the job, show you the operating system in which you're punching in cash, show you how to, hand the food to the clients and such. But it's fairly simple and straightforward. Our only requirements are that everybody has to be 18 plus and that they get smart served in a timely fashion, usually within 30 days of the first event that you work. So that shows there. Then we need the organization to have their own insurance. If not, we can add them to our plan at a fee. And I guess the main part here is getting the involvement. As on a regular season, there would be an assigned stand where you could wear a t-shirt and a hat that represents your group. People would start to recognize that you're there. We encourage you to use social media to say, hey, come see us at such and such a stand. We've been doing this at other facilities across North America for several years, and we find that once that starts happening, more and more people start to come up to your stand because they feel that they're giving back to the community and just by purchasing the food and the beverage that they would at a regular game. Now, I'm not sure if everybody's seen all that. Yes, the fact sheet will be shared to everybody. I can definitely email it out to Helen, and she can attach it with the email post this event. As well, I'm open to any questions now, or if you have some private questions that you have, you feel free to reach out to me. Yes, all the volunteers do need to get smart served because they will pretty much inadvertently be touching alcohol at some point during the game. Each of the stands does have a stand supervisor or lead that is provided by us that will deal with any issues that may come up. So if you feel that you need to cut somebody off, you can call over stand supervisor to talk to the guest. If somebody's being rude or belligerent, we ask that you just step back, and we would take care of dealing with them directly.
I just add a couple things for you there, James.
Yep.
From my experience with SportHamilton, I think it's really important that our volunteers learned a lot doing the Smart Serve certification. It's only $35, and you get that back really quickly in your tips, so that's not an issue at all. But it is a really fantastic learning experience. As well, it allows you the opportunity that you know how to deal with customers and things like that. People do try to buy more drinks than they're supposed to, and it's just really important that you have the capability of saying, no, I can't sell you that, etc. Also, it's important that you have a surplus of volunteers, even though it really only takes 10 people to man the cash registers at your concession. You need people that are going to be there all the time consistently with that certification. So if you had 20 volunteers and they're not always committed to doing every single game, there are 10 home games, as James mentioned. So we did some of the fall season games, the playoff game, we did the Grey Cup game, we did the Canada-USA soccer game, and we're going to be doing the NHL Classic coming up at Tim Hortons Field. So we've had a little bit of practice on how it all works. So it's really important that we have people that are regulars, and then additional people that you can help support them as they come in. And as James said, there is a supervisor at each of the concessions that helps you through any problem solving, shows you how to use the cash register. Every concession is a tiny bit different, but overall the cashes are all the same. So it's easy. We only take credit and debit, so you're not touching any cash, so it's simple. Everybody has a card that you swipe that is specific to you. When you sign in, that card is designated to you. So anything you do on that machine, it records your tips and your sales. So everything's pretty easy and clear. So it's almost a no-brainer for sure. So it's a really easy fundraiser, and it's kind of fun being there in the spirit of all the game and the excitement and everything else. So that's my contribution to that. If anyone has any questions, or James, if you want to add anything in there.
Yeah, there's a couple questions here. So for Catherine, yes. So we do require, so we don't ask for any assistance on the Forge FC games. Though if there's any groups out there that would like to participate in the Forge games, we can definitely take a look at that. They are more frequent and they do come and go. Unfortunately, they creep up as they win certain games, they get added an extra round. So they're a little bit harder to manage, whereas the football games are set in stone. The schedule is already out and available. So it kind of shows exactly when the dates are. And as Helen explained, so we usually ask that you try to recruit 2 people for every position, which then allows them, if somebody can't make it to a game, it's not a problem because you have a backup person to do that. But we do ask for the commitment of the 10 football games. And then we do ask you to work all the big major events. but it's not contractual. So it's definitely worth your while if you want to do the NHL game, or we had the World Cup soccer game, or a Grey Cup game. Those are all kind of extra add-on games. We have the Arkells concert coming up in June. So some of the events are really fun to be part of. So we will always ask if you want to participate in those extra events, but they're not necessarily mandatory. What we are looking for is commitment to all the Tiger Cat games, and those are the commitment that we would want from a group. And then Carolyn asked, each stand has regular items that are sold. So if you're at a burger stand, you're primarily doing burgers. If you're at the poutine stand, it's poutines and fries. Pizza stands, pizza. And then we would get, and then every single position in the building does sell alcohol, pop, coffee. So those are all some of the items that are in there. Teresa, yes, organizations can team up and split to 10 games. We would prefer that it's not a different group every game. So if as a couple of teams want to get together and here's our group of 20, but it consists of 3 different teams or whichever, that's fine. We do kind of ask, we would like to see consistency of 50% of the people every game have worked at a game before. It just helps with the training situation, because we will train as many people as you want to bring out to the training night. But then afterwards, we don't want to be retraining a full group of 10 or 20 or 30 people every single event before the event, like before doors. Whereas if you have at least 50% of the people that have worked a game before, the systems are very easy that they can kind of help guide as you go along.
Good. Any other questions there?
The organization paid at the end. We pay out at the end of every single game. So every group, every time it goes through, there would be we would cut a check within a timely fashion. Helen, your check is in the mail. We got you a new check. The other one, we canceled it. And
no worries. No worries.
But under normal circumstances, the checks are mailed out, and we did it in this case. We realized that there was no postal codes on them. So, but in essence, we do mail them out every single game. We try to get that out to you. The tips can be picked up after every single game, not the day of the event, but usually within 3 to 5 business days of the event. Tips can be picked up as a group. And then as a group, you guys decide what you want to do with the tips. Legally bound, neither us nor the group can force the people to donate their tips. So we give it to the people, to the individual. We'll give it to the group to be able to give it to the individuals. And if anybody chooses to give a portion back, they can do that as well. How many concession stands are utilized? Right now, we have 9 major concession stands, and we have, for most events, we've had 6 actually being taken. Now, these have been some of our larger events, and Sport Hamilton has taken like 2 stands, and we have other participants in our group have been the YWCA, Hamilton Pride, Families First. So we do have some other small groups in here. So it really comes down to if your organization wants to deal directly with us or kind of through Hamilton Sport and kind of work it out in that way. The commitment, we would probably be looking at, I'm trying to think here. The first CFL game is May 28th. So we'd be probably looking at a commitment of no later than May 1st, so that we can go through all the proper training and such. Our anticipation is to do training the 2nd week of May. to get everybody kind of onboarded. We kind of threw Helen and the other groups into the fire because of how it happened, and it happened at the end of the season with COVID and such. But our ideal plan is to have you come in on a specific day that's not an event day, greet you at the front door, and show you the whole process of how to check in, how to get to your stand, what you do when you get to your stand, what the computer system looks like. Almost go through like a mock day, but with no pressure of being, hey, the doors are opening in 2 hours from now, which is kind of what we've done last season, and it's not what we like to do, but it's we made it work last year, but we definitely want to move forward with a better format, and we will be going through that with all groups, even the ones that have been there in the past. The cost of insurance, if you have insurance underneath your own group, all you have to do is put us on as a rider, and it doesn't cost you anything. If we have to do the insurance, so what we normally do is we keep 1% of sales. So whatever your sales are, the payment system will be 3.75% of net sales, or $100 a person, whichever is more, is what we will give to your group. We've been doing it on a flat fee basis, but starting with the football season, we'll be doing it on a percentage basis with a minimum of $100 per person. So if we have to cover your insurance, we do retain 1%. So then it would be either 2.75% of your sales or $90 a person. That we need to, because then we'll put you on our rider and our premium will go up because we're adding you to ours.
Any other questions from folks? I highly recommend this fundraising adventure for sure. Either you partner up with another team or club or organization. SportHamilton currently is partnered up with Kids Sport. So when we are at the stand or the concession, we're already having partners. We've got volunteers from Kids Sport and SportHamilton, and we work together to make sure we have enough volunteers for the games and the events that we've hosted so far. So our plan moving forward is just to have the one stand. So we don't want to take all the stands for sure. We want to make sure that the sport community has access to that. So if you want to partner up with another group and apply through James, there is a little bit of an application process where you outline your organization and your mission, vision, and you know what your goals are, and how much you intend on fundraising, et cetera, and then there is a memorandum of understanding, like a contract to sign, along with your insurance certificate of insurance that you submit as well. So it's all there, and then you can also put the names of the 2 groups or 3 groups that you might want to partner with, as we have. But we are the lead partner with our group, SportHamilton, so it's our insurance, and as well, our volunteers come from Kids Sport as well as SportHamilton.
We have a couple more questions here, Brianne. Concession stands are not very wheelchair friendly, unfortunately. They're very tight spaces. If you did have somebody in a wheelchair, there is possibly things that we can have them help us do that might be on the outside of the stand, but still connected to your stand. To be honest, we haven't had that situation yet. So we would have to work kind of individually, one-on-one, to see what we can and can't do with the environment. But we're not opposed to having somebody in a wheelchair come out and give us a hand. We just have to figure out what it is that we can make work. Teresa asked, can SportHamilton assist in connecting groups to share a stand? I think she already just kind of answered that in a sense, but we would definitely be happy, even if, you know, if we started hearing from individual teams, and we can maybe even connect you guys directly. Then for Michael, where can you find a schedule of the game? Basically, if you just Google Hamilton Tiger Cats, or if you go to the Hamilton Tiger Cats Instagram, their schedule's on there. But at the same time, I'll have Trish send out tomorrow kind of a copy of that sheet I had up. Another question sheet. I'll even send a copy of the sample contract, and we can send out a schedule of the game, and we'll connect that kind of all in one package that maybe Helen would be kind enough to forward to everybody.
Yeah, we're going to email out the recording and a little survey, and we'll hand out your fact sheet and all the information that you're talking about right now, James. So that's not a problem.
Yeah, Carolyn, you worked at the old stand, so that's great. We only have the NPOs working front of house, so we have the cooks in the back cooking to order and pushing the food out front. We have had experiences down in the States where we've had the NPOs participate in the cooking. I haven't gone that route just yet because I feel that it puts a little bit too much pressure on the NPOs. At the end of a full year, if that's something that they thought that they wanted to do and take over a whole stand, there would definitely be some incentives put in for that. But currently you're just basically working the cash register up front, punching in the orders, collecting the money, which is cashless, and handing over the product to the guests. So you would not be dealing with anything, any of the cooking, just basically taking it out of the food chute and handing it to the guest.
Can I just add one thing, James, you hinted to this, that it is a 6-hour shift. So if it's a 3 o'clock kickoff game, we have to be there at 12 o'clock noon because the gates open an hour and a half before. So by the time you get in there, set up, get organized, blah, blah, blah. And then after that, 3 hours. So 3 hours before the game, 3 hours after kickoff. So there's your 6 hours.
So when looking at the schedule, just minus 3 hours from whatever kickoff is, and that's your start time. And then just know that about approximately 3 hours after kickoff is when. Yeah, after. Michael, unfortunately, you do have to serve Argonauts fans too when they're in the building. We try to be nice to the neighbors, kill them with kindness because we're going to win anyways.
There you go.
Just so everybody knows, I will put potential start times for all the events on the schedule that I send.
Thank you, Tricia. Good.
Yeah. So again, with the groups that we have, to be fair right now, I mean, we're close to capacity for Tiger Cats because we had some great partners come out last year, but we're always willing to talk to more groups. And again, as well, potentially, if there's enough interest and we have enough groups, we can maybe do work on some Forge games with groups and maybe not make you commit to every single game. But if we have enough groups that maybe one group does every third game and another group does every third game and another group does every third game type of thing, so that we can get you participating in that as well. So we will do our best to get everybody involved that is interested. And again, our contact information will be in the little kit that we send to Helen to send out to everybody. And we encourage any kind of questions. Feel free to call me directly to talk about any of the details. It feels like it should be more complex than it is, but I think Helen can attest that it's actually been pretty smooth and easy. It's basically show up, come with a positive attitude, work through the game, and you're getting money on the backside, both like I said, from the tips and from the payouts. And we've noticed even with the few small groups that have just helped us out 4 or 5 times that they're already, some of the groups are pushing close to $10,000 already in fundraising. And I've been in this business a long time, and I've done a lot of different fundraising things for a lot of different groups. I coached soccer for 17 years. So it's getting harder and harder to do the traditional fundraisings, you know, the silent auctions and the car washes and the bottle drives. And while they are successful, it is getting harder and harder to do some of those things. Whereas this is, you know, 10 days pre-scheduled out. Everybody knows when it is. And you get to be part of something that's exciting. The great thing about Hamilton is, you know, I don't know if there's anybody in Hamilton that's not actually a Tiger Cats fan. So, you know, being there and being part of that energy is really, you know, really a good opportunity, I think, to have some of the people come out and highlight it. Like I said, I'm 100% on board for people using social media to say, hey, come see us at such and such a stand on the game, you know, and we'll do some, you know, your groups and stuff can do pictures and stuff before doors in your stands as a group, and really showcase what it is that you're trying to get across. We are going to allow this year for different groups to wear a t-shirt and a ball cap that represents their group as well. It all has to be approved by us. So we need to see what it is first, but in essence, we want you to showcase who you are. Yeah. So they're Hamilton Sport, you know, but if it's an individual team or whatever, and you're also allowed to put out some promotional materials and stuff like that, or like a QR code that people can do, or, you know, showcase your Instagram so people can go there to get the opportunities. As far as opportunities to watch the team and watch the games, probably there could be some ways to work that in. That's something that that would be worked with the Ticats. One of the things, and Helen doesn't know this either yet, but one of the things I will be doing is for each of our MPOs too, I'll be giving them a box to a Forge game that they can either use for their internal group as a you know, an incentive, or that you can use to raffle off if you want to make some extra money if you do a separate raffle. So we will be providing that as well for some Forge games. Now that I got a Forge game this year, so or a Forge or a box for the season this year. So I'm going to use some of those opportunities to get out. I'll probably have some season tickets as well that we can probably donate. It's a little harder on the Ticats games because of the demand, but definitely for Forge games, we will have some opportunities for people to come out and see the game. And you know, I'm happy to work with any group that wants to come up with a fundraising idea. So.
Okay. James, I'm going to cut you off there if that's okay. Trish, do you want to add anything else right now? Because we have to move along, but certainly you're more than welcome, Trisha, if there's anything else you'd like to add.
Thank you for asking. I think James did a great job of putting it all out there. I don't have any tidbits to add into his notes, but if anybody has any questions, I'll put the information in the chat for people to reach out to.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you, James and Trisha. That was awesome. I really appreciated you outlining that. And as I mentioned, it was pretty smooth sailing for us. So if I could do it, I think all of you guys could do it. So it's not that hard at all. So a number of our volunteers, they were absolutely amazing and they loved doing it, you know. So and we had some pretty cold weather. So and it was great. So I enjoy it. And I'm looking forward to our next big event coming up in March, the NHL Classic. So that's fantastic. Anyway, I'd like to move along. And thanks again to James and Trisha. For our second speaker, I'd like to introduce Mr. Mike Savoy. He's a sports specialist with the City of Hamilton Healthy and Safe Communities Recreation Division. Mike's going to outline the City Enrichment Fund that's available to sports organizations to financially support some of their, or a portion of their programs and operations. Mike has many responsibilities in his portfolio, but one of them is being the liaison with SportHamilton. Again, any questions that you have, if you wait till Mike finishes his presentation, and you can put it in the chat box, and he has access to that, and he can answer some of those as we go along. And without further ado, Mike, you're on.
Thank you very much, Ellen, and excellent job by James and Trish. That was really informative and really good opportunity, I think, for a lot of the groups in the city to help out and be a part of a really cool thing with Tim Horton's field there. So just want to speak to the Community Enrichment Fund in terms of what opportunities that gives some sport groups and different sectors of the city as well that I will kind of break down. So in the chat box here, I've also put a link of the website. So the website here is our main resource for this grant. So a lot of the information I'm going to be discussing today is all basically housed in this specific website. So if you do want to click along and follow along, it's there. And like I said, it's there for kind of post use as well as you're kind of digging in a little bit more. So to start, I will share my screen. And there we are. So again, this is the City Enrichment Fund. So this is something where each year this is a new opportunity for different community groups to apply. So there's a little bit of an overall breakdown I'll kind of do in terms of some general overview, and then there is a bit of a PowerPoint presentation I will walk through, and then I can answer any specific questions for you as well. So in terms of the City Enrichment Fund, just to kind of set the table on this in general, typically the intake of this fund is from September 1st as an opening to close on November 1st. So in terms of the application process right now, it is closed for this year, but I think hopefully from this presentation and kind of diving in and going back to your groups, you can at least kind of set the table if you're already not aware of the City Enrichment Fund, that you can maybe think about some projects that might be useful and then kind of plan throughout the year. And in the chat box as well, I'll provide the contact for the main sports specialist who looks after this grant. Her name is Deborah Maudsley. She couldn't attend today due to conflict, but she is the one who kind of looks after this whole process in general with the city of Hamilton. So going into this process at all. So there are 6 different funding areas that the Community Enrichment Fund kind of looks after. So agriculture, community service, arts, environment, communities, culture, and heritage, and then sport and active lifestyles, which I'm assuming most of us in this presentation will be kind of falling into that. So within sports and active lifestyles, that's kind of where I'm going to be focusing today. There is 7 different funding streams within sport to kind of look at applying and kind of putting together a grant proposal for us. So there's a long-term athlete development and planning implementation, sports awareness, capacity building, sport development, inclusion, accessibility, active for life, and multi-sport housing. So like I said, application deadlines typically open up September 1st and kind of close November 1st. We do kind of set up some webinars and kind of things like that to kind of help, explain the grant process and kind of walk you through and understand all of that and answer any questions. So that being said, again, I will provide Deborah Maudsley's contact information as well. And she's the main staff who kind of looks after that. And she's willing to kind of work with groups throughout the year to kind of, answer some of those questions and set you up for success. I think me and Helen were talking earlier, and I think one of the key things with grant applications is they can definitely be intimidating to kind of consider, and there is a little bit of legwork organizations need to do to meet the criteria. But, basically we just want to ensure that, by having all the information here and keeping that line of communication open, setting groups up for success is the best way to kind of get through it. And, once you kind of get through 1 or 2 applications, you start to kind of find your rhythm in terms of that too. So In terms of the eligibility, again, I'll kind of go over this a little bit more in the presentation, but program funding request is up to 30% of the total eligible program budget for the sport sector as well. It's to a capacity of $7,500. So again, the program must take place in the City of Hamilton. And again, the legal status of your organization is nonprofit, community organization, volunteer organization with nonprofit goals. So I'll kind of walk you through the presentation in terms of how to set up your application, and just kind of want to show you the website a little bit. And again, each different area here, when you see program areas, if you were to collapse the screen down, it will have a specific handbook and presentation as well that you can access at any point. And we're going to be going in the grant handbook with the sport and active lifestyles shortly, just so I can kind of break that down. And that, like, again, will provide you all the key information. And as you see here, Deborah Maudsley's email right here is right there, and she would be our main person to kind of contact for the sport and active lifestyle stream. And then below here, there is a bunch of different FAQ type questions that can kind of go through that whole process. So in terms of the PowerPoint here, again, this is a 2021 presentation, so I just want to, keep in mind things could change and possible. So, I mean, the website will be your main house to get this information, and if there's any, any updates, again, this will be where that will be found. And again, Deborah would definitely be the person to contact with. So in terms of the City Enrichment Fund, it reflects the city's long-term commitment and understanding of the value to the organizations and community, embraces the city's vision, so to be the best place in Canada to raise a child and age successfully, and acknowledges that we are investing further into improve the lives of our citizens. So again, in terms of the City Enrichment Fund, there's just a general overview here. So increased transparency of the process and outcomes, increased community impact, strategic and equitable, to be more consistent with best practices, flexible to address the community needs, and increase opportunities for new applicants to receive funding. So these are kind of some of the things that we've developed to ensure that process is fair and transparent for all groups. So this is kind of the breakdown when you look at it from the different sectors and kind of the streams. So again, the 6 different streams again that are there in each different sector as well. So again, general criteria, incorporated non-for-profit organizations or community associations. They must again apply within the City of Hamilton. Applications cannot be signed by a city employee and will not be considered. The total grant can't be 30% of total project operating costs. The only exception to that is the multi-sport housing, which are again over the 7,500, where the multi-sport housing is a bigger event style production. So that one is a little bit higher than the 7,500. And again, applications are that November 1st and nothing past that. So some general ineligible criteria. So again, trying to set you guys up for success in terms of trying to ensure that you qualify or things that you may need to consider. So it's just not that you're not sinking in all this different time and energy to apply for a grant. So organizations whose purpose is related to a political activity as defined by Canada Revenue Agency would not be, these are all things that would not be applicable. For-profit organizations, foundations, universities, schools, hospitals, and public agencies, religious activities, and fundraising events. So as I mentioned, the timelines, so typically, right, again, November 2nd is kind of when that, again, November 1st, 4:30 is when it closes. November 2nd is when we kind of get into now splitting up the work to go to the adjudicators. So each different application is marked by 3 different adjudicators to kind of get some sort of a baseline in terms of consistency. So we're, different eyes have seen it. So it's as fair as process as possible. So once that period's done somewhere in late January, February, it then goes through the processing period. And then somewhere in the May area, it would get presented to council, then go to the announcing to the applicants notified there. and kind of in that range. So you're kind of basically, once you kind of get through it, kind of May, June is when you'd be in that kind of positive area. So again, here's our different streams. So long-term athletic development planning and implementation. So to support the development, education, and implementation of the strategic plan or project that aligns with the sport's corresponding long-term athlete player development model. Sport awareness to enhance the ability of organizations to grow, develop, promote programs with high merit, strong impact, and solid viability. Capacity building to strengthen the quality of relevance and effectiveness of sport-related programs through leadership development and oversight. Sport development and inclusion to engage marginalized populations by supporting creative visionary projects which use sport as a mechanism for something greater than itself. Accessibility to increase participation and engage persons with disabilities that would not otherwise participate in sport or physical activities through enhancing the resources and collaboration with community partners. Active for Life to provide opportunity for new and expanding programs for a targeted population that will build and strengthen physical literacy skills and support healthy active lifestyles. And again, multi-sport hosting, which to provide the opportunity for organizations to host multi-sport competition tournaments and larger events that will showcase Hamilton as a sport for life community. So again, on the website, as I kind of walk through, each different stream has a breakdown of different program handbooks, and these will really walk you through a lot more specifically in terms of the do's, the don'ts, and things we're looking for. Again, we do these to kind of set all the organizations up for success, so you have all that information and kind of stuff ahead of time to kind of look into. And again, the key things that we're trying to focus on is really encouraging all the groups to really take a look at this information, ask the appropriate questions, and be as detailed as possible, because again, the more detail and specific detail is just going to make your application stand out. So again, that kind of is some of the clear applications. So clarity, again, as clear as possible. Edit, obviously, it's always good, especially if you have a board of directors or other people involved, having more people look at it and really make sure it's fine-tuned. Financials is obviously very key. So this is going to help us understand what your organization does from a budget standpoint. And again, outcomes to key successful applications. So again, think about how we can be very specific about, mentioning how you're going to go about using the money and do that. So again, for participation, really talk about how you're going to expand it from this to that percent, how many social media posts or likes you're really going to hope to get, things of that sense. So again, specific examples is going to go a long ways to ensure that. So the City Enrichment Fund has switched to an online application. So again, this is something, again, it's all housed on the website that I've provided in the chat. So again, you would have to set up an account. The application forms are all there. Everything's basically housed out of this website. And again, Deborah Maudsley would be the person who can really speak to these specific things to kind of really work with your organization to set you up to make sure you're understanding of what details you need to do. Again, you can, so as you do it, you can kind of work through it. Once you hit submit, it doesn't mean it's locked in forever. If all of a sudden you feel you want to add something or detail it, basically as long as it's done before that deadline period, that's your ability to kind of go in and view the progress and kind of go through that. So again, that is a good feature. So it's just not one of those things that you feel like you sent away and might have felt you screwed up on something or wanted to be more specific about something. So again, the account information is as simple as this, kind of general information in terms of your organization. And again, this is kind of walking through what the grant will look like. So again, there will be a bunch of different questions and specific things that the application will host or will house and ask you to do. So again, it's going to give you a character kind of limit for each category. So again, like, going back to schooling where you had to submit a certain amount of essays. Again, if it's, setting you up for success and it's a max 1,000 characters, again, the most clear and specific you can be to maximizing, what is provided for you is, I think, is going to help make you more successful in your grant application. So again, this is some more examples of being specific in terms of outcomes. So again, something, again, as it's listed, we hope that we have a large number of enthusiastic participants isn't really being specific, as opposed to saying we're hoping to get 1,000 to 1,300 with an average of 25%. So again, really using those numbers and specifics, and really defining roles and who's doing what and how and where, is going to kind of make your application pop more. And again, there's a budget form that, again, you can kind of view on the website as well. It's kind of an Excel spreadsheet that can be used for that. So again, I will put Deborah's information in the chat here, just so if you had any questions, like, again, obviously I can help assist with any questions you may have today in the chat. But again, kind of going forward, Deb is the main contact as a sports specialist with the City of Hamilton for this portfolio item. So one other thing I just wanted to share as well, if I can, is and I'm not going to go too specific over this one because it is pretty lengthy and I want to leave a little bit of time for questions if there is. But this is the specific kind of handbook for the sport and active lifestyles. So this is going to basically break down every part of the grant that's going to happen, and kind of the do's and don'ts to really, again, set you up for success. So it's going to go into each different stream and say these are some things that are applicable to this stream, and there's some things that are not. So within the 7 different streams, it's going to break down the type of things that would be eligible and then the ineligible things. So again, that's going to set you up for success to know right off the hop if you're going to put together a project that these are the things that would be considered and not. So for all 7 different streams, they're all listed with very specific criteria. And then again, it's going to break down in terms of the questions that the grant's going to ask. So it's going to go from a mission statement, the history of your organization, organizational overview, budget notes, board of directors, how you're going to be spending the budget. All the questions that are here are very clearly laid out. And again, trying to set you up that with all these different questions, basically trying to lead you to give you the answers right there. So again, talking about different measurables, listing all the specific people, their roles, how your grant is going to line up with City of Hamilton's strategic priorities and the vision of the city. And again, some very specific program questions as well. So again, multi-sport hosting is also another one that's going to have a little bit of a different pathway compared to some of the 6 other streams. So again, other attachments that you're going to need to do as a board of directors, a staffing list is optional, your financial statements, and then optional material of marketing and different posters, flyers, and things that you may also include. So that kind of wraps up kind of the CEF fund in a general kind of fashion. So I kind of will kind of stop my screen and then we can kind of look in
Mike,
chat.
there's a question there.
Yeah.
There's a question from Brianne that says, what if your program is in both Hamilton and Burlington? Would you be eligible for the City Enrichment Fund?
So I think that's something I'm going to lean to asking Deb on that one. I think again, as the intent is to have the program work out of Hamilton, but I don't know if the criteria, does it have to be 100% in Hamilton? I think that's something that they can definitely be asked. So I'd encourage you to reach out to Deb and let me provide her contact information.
Can I just ask Brianne, is that synchronized swimming, Brianne? Because I'm aware that synchro swimming operates in both Hamilton and Burlington, the same club. Is that correct? No, wheelchair basketball. Okay.
And is this a sport that, due to the
Wheelchair, but
games, yeah, like, is it splitting between the cities due to like, or is it like a Burlington program?
she's not answering.
Okay, we'll give her some time.
Yeah, let's look at that, because that's really important that we make sure that we're getting as many sports involved in the City Enrichment Fund as possible, especially during these times. It is tough. And so everyone's really squeezed for cash for sure because of the pandemic and wanting to get back into things. We have lost money over the last 2 years for sure. And,
Yes.
and the kids have missed out, and individuals have missed out on programming. So we'd like to be able to offer that.
Absolutely.
Any other questions for Mike with the City Enrichment? Oh, yes, games and practices are in both cities. That's what she's saying. Yeah.
Yeah, so I can definitely follow up, Brianne, and get that specific criteria. And again, Deb Maudsley again would be the person that definitely would have that specific information for you. So, and like I said, I think the main thing, kind of Helen, when she approached me about this webinar, was again trying to just make awareness of the grant in general, just especially in case people were unaware. Again, this is something, as we get through the process, we may do more community engagement. And again, the general timelines again are kind of that September, October, where we would also kind of do some maybe webinars as well, just kind of on the how-tos and answer any questions that we can to again, really set everyone up for success. It is a lot of work to put in a grant application. We just want to make sure you guys have all the details to kind of move forward with that and kind of keep the lines of communication open. And I know, like, again, someone like Helen's probably writ a million different grant applications. She's a great resource in terms of reaching out and being specific to that too.
I hate doing applications. I hate it.
But you've done a lot of good successful ones. So
yeah.
I think it's one of those things. Again, if you haven't done a grant application, like I said, I think it can be intimidating, but talking to other sport groups who have been successful or who've gone through this process, I think will kind of put some of that kind of tempered away a little bit to understand that, it is a little bit of work, but once you kind of get through it and set up all that structure that's kind of typically required for most grants, I think then you can start to fire them off in different directions, not just this one, but what other grants in general that may present themselves.
Yeah. Okay, just because of time-wise, if we don't have any other questions, certainly you can reach out to Mike or Deb or James or Trisha for any further information, or if you have any specifically that you think I can help you with, please don't hesitate to email me at info@sporthamilton.com. You can get a hold of me there, so certainly do that. I'd like to thank Mike for doing such a thorough job on outlining the process of the City Enrichment Fund. Well done. And I appreciate all the time and effort you put into that, and to James and Trisha as well. Thank you for all that you provided this evening. Before we head out, I just want to let you know that our next webinar that Sport Hamilton is hosting is scheduled for March the 8th. It's at 7 till 8:30 in the evening, and it's called Coaching Beyond the Locker Room and the Impact Coaches Have on Reducing Gender-Based Violence. Our guest presenters will be Dane Evans, quarterback of the Hamilton Tiger Cats, Sean Burt from the McMaster, he's the athletic director at McMaster University, and Sue Taylor, executive director with Interval House Hamilton. So you can go on our Sport Hamilton website under webinars. You can register there with the Eventbrite, and there will be more information there. Please share it with any other individuals, fellow coaches, interested friends who might be interested in that as well. And you'll find more information. And we'll be sending stuff out on our social media about that as well. So thank you to everyone for joining us tonight. It was a pleasure having you. Our communication coordinator, Lucia, will be sending out a short survey asking you to answer just a few questions so that we have some feedback. She'll be sending out a link to the recording. She'll be sending out the information that James and Tricia are providing for us. And if there's anything further that Mike is going to give us, she'll send everything out in a package to you. And as I mentioned before, this recording will be on our Sport Hamilton YouTube channel. So again, thank you to everyone for attending tonight. And I appreciate your feedback. It really helps us to be able to get some meaningful information so that we can provide more things for you in the future. So thanks again, and good night, everybody. And thank you to Lucia for helping me out in the background there as well. Take care, everybody.